Welcome back to the Set in Life podcast. Today, we're talking about something that separates people more than talent, intelligence, or even opportunity. And that is this, taking risk. And before you hear that word and think I'm talking about reckless decisions or gambling your future, that is not what this is. I'm talking about calculated risk, the kind that growth requires, the kind that most people avoid, the kind that usually sits on the other side of fear, uncertainty, and discomfort. Because the truth is, a lot of people want change, but they don't want risk. They want growth, but they want guarantees, and life does not work like that. If you want something different, at some point, you have to be willing to move before certainty shows up. Let's start here. Most people are not stuck because they are incapable. They are stuck because they are too comfortable, and comfort feels safe, predictable, controlled, and you know what to expect. You know how to operate there, and because of that, you stay there. Even when you know deep down that you have outgrown that version of your life, because comfort has a strange way of convincing you that staying the same is safer than changing. But here is the reality: comfort protects you from failure and success at the same time. There's that trade. First truth: you cannot grow without risk. Growth requires uncertainty. There's no way around it. Every meaningful decision carries some level of unknown. Something, starting something, changing direction, speaking up, building something, leaving environments that no longer fit. All of that involves risk. And if you spend your life trying to eliminate uncertainty completely, you eliminate growth with it. Second, most people fear failure more than they value opportunity. This is why they hesitate. They think, what if it does not work? What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? And those thoughts become louder than the potential reward. So instead of acting, they wait. They overthink. They stay where it feels safer. But here's the problem: avoiding risk does not remove consequences, it creates different ones. And sometimes those consequences are worse because failure teaches, regret lingers. And you know how you push yourself in the gym and you know you have to fail to grow? Why don't we just do that already in real life? It's the same thing. So, third, you are already taking risk. People think staying where they are is a safe choice, but staying the same is a risk too. Staying in situations that drain you, staying in routines that don't challenge you, staying in environments that limit your growth. That's risk because you are risking years of your life, staying where you do not belong. And most people never look at it like that. They fear the risk of action, but ignore the risk of stagnation. Fourth, you overestimate danger and underestimate yourself. This is common. You imagine worst case scenarios. You predict failure. You build problems in your head before anything even happens. But what you don't account for is your ability to adapt, your ability to learn, and your ability to recover. And that matters because confidence does not come from guarantees, it comes from learning that you can handle uncertainty. Fifth, playing it safe often keeps you average. This might sound harsh, but it is true. Average lives are usually built through safe decisions repeated over time. Nothing challenged, nothing stretched, nothing questioned, just normal routine. And there's nothing wrong with stability, unless stability becomes an excuse for avoiding growth. Because if you always choose what feels safest, you usually stay exactly where you are. Now, let's go deeper, because this conversation isn't only about external risk, it's also about the internal ones. Sixth, taking risk challenges your identity. This is why it feels uncomfortable, because risk forces you out of familiar patterns. You are no longer operating inside the version of yourself you know. And that creates resistance. You doubt yourself. You question your decisions. You wonder if you are making a mistake. But that discomfort is often a sign that growth is happening. Because identity expands through experience, not comfort. Seventh, fear is not always a warning. Sometimes it is direction. This is important. People treat fear like proof they shouldn't do something. But fear doesn't automatically mean danger. Sometimes it means unfamiliarity. Sometimes it means growth. Sometimes it just means you're approaching something that matters. And if you automatically retreat every time that fear shows up, you train yourself to stay small. Eighth, you do not need certainty to move. This is where many people get stuck. They want the full plan, the perfect timing, the guarantee that everything will work out. But certainty usually comes after movement, not before it. Action creates clarity. Waiting rarely does. And this is one of the hardest lessons to accept because people want confidence first, but confidence is usually built through action. Ninth, every version of your future comes with a price. People talk about risk like it is optional, but it is not. Every path costs something. Growth costs comfort. Discipline costs convenience. Change costs familiarity. And staying the same costs potential. So the real question is not which option has no risk, because none do. The question is, which cost am I willing to accept? 10th, you cannot build a meaningful life by avoiding discomfort. That is impossible. Anything worthwhile requires effort, uncertainty, and patience. Relationships, business, fitness, self improvement, leadership, all of it. And if your main goal is comfort, you will constantly avoid the very things that will build your future. Now, here's a truth people don't talk about enough. And a lot of people use logic to hide fear. They say they are being realistic. They say that they are waiting for the right time. And they say that they are thinking it through. And sometimes that can be true. But sometimes it's fear disguised as logic. Because there's a difference between strategy and hesitation. Strategy moves you forward, hesitation keeps you stuck. And you have to be honest enough to know the difference. Another thing, the people you admire probably took risks you never saw. You see outcomes, results, success, but you don't always see uncertainty. You don't see the moments where they doubted themselves, where they had no guarantees, where they moved anyway. Risk exists behind almost every meaningful achievement. That's the part that people forget about. And honestly, some of your biggest life changes will come from decisions that feel uncomfortable at first. Not because they are wrong, but because they stretch you. Think about that. Some of the most defining moments of your life may begin with uncertainty. And if you avoid that feeling completely, you might avoid those opportunities too. Now, this doesn't mean taking reckless risk. That's not wisdom. You don't ignore reality. You don't abandon responsibility. You calculate, you prepare, you think clearly. But once you've done that, you move because overthinking can become another form of avoidance. So now the question becomes, how do you actually become more willing to take risk? First, change how you define failure. Failure is not always losing. Sometimes failure is never trying. Sometimes failure is staying where you know you've outgrown. Sometimes failure is allowing fear to decide your future. That perspective changes everything. Second, start taking smaller risks consistently. Speak up. Try something. Have difficult conversations. Put yourself in situations that stretch your confidence. Because courage grows through repetition, not theory. Third, focus on learning, not perfection. Every risk does not need to succeed, but it should teach you something. That mindset reduces fear because now the outcome is growth, either way. Fourth, stop asking for guarantees. Life does not provide them, and waiting for certainty only delays progress. Make informed decisions, then commit. Fifth, remember the cost of staying the same. This matters because sometimes people only think about what could go wrong if they act, and never consider what could go wrong if they don't. Lost years, opportunities, unrealized potential. That cost deserves attention too. Here's the reality. The life you want probably requires a version of you that takes more risk than the current one. More courage, more trust, more willingness to move through uncertainty. Because safe decisions really create extraordinary outcomes. And if you want different results, you eventually have to stop protecting comfort more than your future. So, be honest with yourself. Where are you playing it safe? Where are you hesitating? Where are you waiting for certainty that may never come? Identify it and start moving. Not recklessly, not emotionally, but intentionally. Because growth rewards movement. And the biggest risk is not failure. It's living below your potential because fear convinces you to stay comfortable. Take the risk, trust your ability to adapt, and build the life that you know you are capable of. And that has to do it for this episode. I will catch you in the next one. See ya.